About our old school stoicism. My mother is the same way.
I dread when I done in the Gael who were badly wounded, good dead. It's war in the morning I pelting, in the evening I flinging war. I go down them with calypso war. So tell this ruling partnership in this Gael that gets no mercy. Not the COP, not the UNC, neither Shak or TOP. Cause if you line up the first letters, read between the lines carefully. That spelling C-U-N. But wait, T and T you see, then it.
Me didn't realize that Mr. Shak was spelling out while I'm said a big word in the middle of his song. So these fellas have no respect for me. I can't be spelling out words like C-U-N-T on my live. I mean, problems, big problems. So good evening. How y'all doing? Hi Dion Wellington. I realize that you have been consistent about being the first person on this live week after week, right? So I think I'm going to have to organize a prize for you, Dion, because once you inside, I know the live taking place. Hi Ruth, hi Debbie, hi Anne, hi Natasha, hi Sheldon. How y'all doing? Thank you so much for joining me. So we're going to have a conversation this evening with two of our griots, two of our oral performers, our oral practitioners, our oral gatemen, as it were. And I'm hoping that it's going to be the kind of conversation that will give you a little bit more insight into the value of our tradition here. So I thought long and hard about who I wanted to have the conversation with, and I reached out to Omari, Ashby, that I have a fairly decent and long relationship with, because we're both on the same university campus together, and we bounce up each other from time to time and have conversations. And then there's a calypsonian whose work I admire, and we have engaged via Facebook from time to time. And I say, you know what, let me pull in this one, let me pull in Mr. Shak and see if he go say yes. Let me see if he will grant me a yes. And he granted me a yes. He say, all right, yes, Miss Lady, I will come on your program and talk the things with you. So these two gentlemen are going to be here with me today, and I'm hoping that by the time we get to the end of this, you all will understand the beauty of the things that we practice here, and why they are so vital to us, and why when that Juve thing took place, the Juve rum, why many of us responded in a visceral way. Like you couldn't 100% put your finger on why you was so upset and why you was so vexed. So maybe after we've had this conversation, it will help you to understand things a little bit better. And so let me bring on these two lovely gentlemen. Hello guys, how you all doing? Hi Omari.
Greetings.
Hi Mr. Shak. Alright, just now let me small up a little bit. Same size as all your own. Good, nice, right. So, God, who to put on the hot seat first, boy? Mr. Shak.
Go with seniority. With seniority.
No. We're going with youth. We're going with beauty before we're going with beauty before seniority.
So you starting then?
No. You are. Listen, I've had Omari here before. Omari and I are custom. We've been done talking for a minute. But you, on the other hand, and you see how you have that nice blush and thing going on there? Yeah.
Nice, honey.
Who's this?
make out scene on the people live. Mr. Shak, one of the things I've noticed that is like, I teach literature, right? So of course one of the things I tend to talk about often will be themes and symbols and motifs. And I've noticed that as a calypsonian, the stick fighter, this is a huge symbol in your work. It's a motif that weaves its way in and out, down to it being kind of entrenched in your name, Calypso Rebel. So I want to ask you, the first thing I want to ask is, why is this image of a martial artist, because stick fighting is akin to martial arts, right? It's kind of like martial arts. Why is that such an important symbol for you as an oral lyrical practitioner?
Very good question. Well, first things first is that, as you say, stick fight is a martial arts, but it is
I mean, stick fight, of course, there are different variations of stick fight all over the world, but that African version of stick fighting, that calendar, right, is very important because traditionally, calendar and calypso, in our experience in this part of the world, always was indelibly tied together, you know.
How so? Explain for me.
Well, when you look at the at calendar and the origins of calendar music, let us deal with even from the perspective of the initial recording of calypso, right? Let me take it from that perspective.
Sure.
The first vocal recordings of calypso, right, was by a stick fight vocalist. It was a calendar song by a stick fight vocalist. That call and response, right? So that feel of that call and response was always part of the expression as stick fight, not just in terms of the art in the ring, but even for the chanters. You understand? So there was always that connection between the stick fight and the calypso, and that rebellious nature of the feel of the whole thing.
So,
right?
If I am to understand what you're saying that stick fighting and calypso are linked. They're two linked traditions.
Yes. Yeah. In my estimation, they are. Right? And so the concept of, now I had always, even before I did that song that you start with, Bois, which is the song that is most recognized for my usage of what you pointed out there.
Yeah.
Even before that, I would have been using that element of call and response, that calendar feel in my music.
Why? What led to that? What brought that about?
Because again, historically our African experience in terms of music and how we used to the griot and the masses interacting. You see, that was always an interactive thing. It's not like you're sitting down just watching a man or a woman dictate something to you, right? There is also that interactive feel because you had to get into the psyche of the people, right? So that call and response feel and that engagement was always part of the thing. And for me, it was something that resonated with me in terms of a musical tool.
Where's the first? I don't know if you can remember or not, but that the whole call and response thing, where did you first hear it? Like, where did you first experience it? Like me, if I had to talk about it, I will say I first experienced it, I think, at church, right? With the singing of hymns and choruses. I think at church. I might be wrong, but I think that's my first memory of it. Was your first memory of it?
Yeah, I mean, I have had my memories of that where you talk about there, but my memory of it was even before that, because I born into a familial experience both on maternal and paternal sides.
Right.
I born into a family that was entrenched in culture and calypso.
Okay.
Right? So that for me, my home environment was hearing calypso, and hearing practitioners of calypso who themselves would I utilize that form of expression within the calypso.
All right. Omari, let me pull you in here because I see it. I hear you in the corner. They're saying yes, calypso and calendar interlinked. So jump in there now.
Well, it's more than interlinked, I just want to before I get into it,
sure,
to send out my condolences to Taluma Simba's family, the Rapso family, the nation, his children, and now doing this talk we have in here, it's been a hard week, but I could smile because I know he would enjoy and probably still enjoying this kind of conversation and where we're going and where we're taking the thing. So yeah, one of the things we have to understand is when we come in this side of the world, we started to deal with our art forms in a different way. So we start to separate it, right? We start to have music and have singers and have dance in a separate way. But in the African way is one thing. That is why calendar is the music and calendar is also the fight.
The fight.
Because So when we say kalinda, it didn't used to have a separation. It's only now we cannot separate in we head. And kalinda is the foundation upon which calypso is built, right? So it developed from that kalinda chant, then it developed to the single tone kaiso, and then it developed to the double tone kaiso. But it's also, so it is a historical thing, and historical in the sense that there's two things we doing, right, with our cultural forms in this space. We are recreating, right? But we are also looking at retentions.
So retaining and recreating.
And recreating.
So retaining as in holding on to, but at the same time, we're creating something new, different.
Yes. In the sense of not just new, but we also trying to link back to a part of ourselves that we know is there, right?
Yeah.
And by that I simply mean here how it goes. There are some our population in Trinidad and Tobago, Trinidad in particular, the enslaved population and then the African population at the time would have been two things, right? You would have had a population that because of the abolition of the slave trade by the English, when they catch you on the open waters with enslaved Africans, they would either carry you back to Sierra Leone or bring the enslaved Africans or the potential Africans that they want enslaved to Brazil, Cuba, and Trinidad.
Yes.
Right? So there would, and the difference with those Africans is this: they're not getting separated. So tribe for tribe, right? They might still end up on the plantation working for very low wages and stuff. But the effect of that is two things. One, you have now songs that come in as they were.
I wanted to stick up in because somebody in the audience, the listening audience, just asked what is kalinda, and I need to clarify it for them. So it is spelled Kalinda, and kalinda refers to the stick fighting songs, and it also refers to the stick fighting art form. Am I correct, gentlemen? I have that correct?
Generally, yes.
In a nutshell.
Right. So the actual stick fighting is referred to as kalinda, and the songs are also referred to as kalinda songs, right?
Kalindas, yes.
Okay, good. Cool. Yes, Omari, go ahead.
We're here all night. So what I want to say is that a lot of what we retain came from some of those traditions. Like my grandmother's grandmother, right, would have been an African who never saw slavery. What was in Trinidad was in Belmont, as a matter of fact.
Right. So she grew up in Freetown.
Right. And so their experiences in terms of songs and what will be stronger than the enslaved Africans who would have gone through, I think, but had a memory. Right? So them two things would have joined up somewhere in the mix and give us a kind of so when we singing and that kalinda style lasts from then till now, because if you listen to songs now, right?
Yeah.
And it's so,
because
it's so
the melodies are much the same melodies, not so?
Same melodies, right, and also same attitude. I thinking back of soca warriors, right? From Maximus, right? Or MX Prime as he's known.
Yeah.
You see how strong that comeback for the victory that we saw. Well, no, the draw. Well, was a victory for us.
Yeah, it was a victory for us just the other day when all of the fellas was in the room singing the song.
And the reason that remains so powerful is that call and response, right? So when I lift up my voice and I say, whoa, whoa, the only thing you could do if you're a human being. And so that impulse is something that we retained, right? And these retentions are not simply we like it so we go keep it. Remember, we were people that had to maintain our humanity in the face of being treated like less than humans.
In the face of a lot of abuse and denigration, yes.
And there are ways that you do that. And one of the ways that you do that is holding on to that part of you that is the strongest that resonates the most, that goes beyond a simple thing. It is so deeply ingrained in you that you reach it, and in that space, you are now whole again. You know?
Yeah. No, I know one of the things that, or one of the I don't want to call it symbols. One of the one of the icons that you associate yourself with, Omari, is the Jolly Man.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, you are the only person I've ever heard using that word, right? Apart from me studying it, you are the only other person I've heard talk about the Jolly Man. So if you can explain for my audience, one, what the Jolly Man is, and two, why is the Jolly Man so important to you as a symbol?
So one of the things we know, one of the things we talk about all the time is griots, right?
Yes.
Now, the griot is really a jolly or a jelly, right? It's either spelled D-J-A-L-I or D-J-E-L-I.
Right.
Right? It's
in some cases they don't use the D, they just say jelly.
Yeah,
right?
just jelly. Yes.
Right? So it's a Senegambian origin, right? And what it is the storyteller, the storehouse of knowledge, the repository of the people's story, singer of praise, and they're very highly regarded. They would settle everything from disputes, right? But always highly regarded based on what they do, right? Now in of course for me, starting to realize what I was doing, you know, the saying is a griot, and I started to do research, and I saw the jolly or the jelly, and they're talking about what it means. The actual word in the Mandingo language means blood, and what it indicates is just as the blood is what carries everything to where you need it in the body.
The life source.
For society, the jolly is that blood that keeps the stories, the history, and so for me that was strong. And in Trinidad we have a way. We just add man to everybody name now. So you can be like a man. Right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, look the lolly man coming there.
Yeah.
Right? So you kind of come what you're doing. And
everybody know me now as the boy man.
You see boy man, exactly.
Boy man, right? So in Trinidad I couldn't be just a jolly. I had to be a jolly man.
Gotcha.
Right. So that is where that idea come. And that idea is so powerful for me because almost every oral character that we have in Trinidad is birthed from that. Everything from the Peregrinator to the Midnight Robber to the Shantwell, you know, modern day calypso, rhapso man, everything comes from that. That idea of being a storehouse of knowledge and a repository, you know.
Gotcha.
And if I could
jump in. I want to take a back seat.
A really important thing what Omari saying there too, because I took notice of it when I started to take notice of Omari too, that whole jolly man thing. And one of the important things, because the responsibility of the jolly man and the griot too was great.
Yeah.
Because as he said, is not just chronicling, you know, but it's also the preservation of a number of things, because the jolly man responsible for you had to keep record of the genealogy, marriages, births and deaths, and then also the rituals, the historical, the spiritual rituals and everything. So it became that, because not anybody could have become a jolly.
No, not any and everybody.
Well, in the pantheon of jolly, you couldn't become a jolly. You had to be born.
You had to
be a jolly.
You had to be born that, because it became an endogamous kind of strata where you find jollies marrying other jollies, because there were females who were jollies as well, and so they became a strata in and of themselves, where you had to be born into that.
So like a class, like a group, like a class group within a clan, or within a culture.
And you would have been, that is not something just, and although you had to be born into it, it wasn't just right. Okay, Omari born in the lineage of the jolly, so he's automatically that. You also had to be trained for that,
Right,
for almost your entire life, because they're starting to train you from about the age of 7 or 8 with all these different principles and all these different ideologies that you have to understand and your responsibility as a Jali. So you're not becoming recognized as that until you're about 18, 19, 20. You know what I mean?
Here was the importance of that, right? Here was the importance of that.
Yeah.
The importance of the Jali is that when you forcibly kidnap Africans out of the continent and bring them here and think that you take everything from them, you would have bring a Jali or two. Right?
Correct.
And in that mix, all he had to bring with himself is the knowledge.
And so what he's in a position, he or she is in a position to do when they get here is to help people to understand where they came from and the tradition, the strong grounded tradition that they would have come from. Now, Omari, as I'm talking about strong grounded tradition there,
and also,
sure, go ahead, Chala.
Right.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say,
I was going to say that not only are they reminding people of who they are, where they come from, but they also formulating that response to the current circumstance, or what the current circumstance was.
So they're
helping to inform,
informing and shaping thought. Yeah, they're informing and shaping thought.
Exactly.
So they kind of function the way in which we would hope that critics ought to be functioning in a society.
Pretty much.
Exactly. Yeah.
Omari, you said something really interesting a couple minutes ago. You talked about your grandmother's grandmother, and I wanted to ask, how do you know about your grandmother's grandmother?
Well, I was fortunate because I as a young person, me and my grandmother were very close, and I used to like to talk to her, and she used to tell me things. No, my grandmother was a very spiritual person. She was a bush doctor. But she also there was a kind of, as with all people of that generation, there was a kind of duality to her. Yeah. Because in the 1 minute she would be telling me, you's the only one who kind of take the African way. And then the next minute when she see her growing her ass now, she said, well, why you doing your head that? And so it was a kind of, right?
Pull and tug.
Yeah. So she sit me down and she said, listen, Tantan Mapiaka. I never know what that means, but that was the grandmother's name, Tantan Mapiaka. And she said Tantan Mapiaka was her name, right? And she said she was never a slave. And the next thing she always told me is that she used to look at herself different from the Africans that were born here, right? And so much so, she used to tell her when they used to have the meetings, the secret meetings, the convoys or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And she used to tell my grandmother, who used to want to go with her, she used to say, no, you have to stay home. African business does beat with feathers. Right? And she always passed that down to me. She said, African business does beat with feathers. Which means that when you're seeing about your thing, not everything is for public consumption.
It's soft. It's soft, underload. Yes, silence.
When we're seeing about yourself. And one of the things I often lament about the African society and the African in Trinidad and Tobago is that we don't have those spaces that are dedicated to that kind of thing, where we could go and support yourself and talk and deal with one another in a particular way. And that have plenty of implications to it, right? Because a lot of other ethnicities and stuff will have the different places that they could do that kind of fixing and dealing and stuff. But we don't really have it in that kind of organic way anymore.
That kind of self-care. That kind of self-care, because that's what it is. It's group self-care in a sense. Yeah. Mr. Shak, you're dying to say something. I've seen it on your face. Jump in.
No, well, I mean, I just listening to how, and again, that passing down and that understanding, that is one of the modern day issues we have too, because
what's your tradition like, Mr. What's your tradition like, Mr. Shak? Because the way in which you're talking, when you were talking before, and you talked about the things that you learned and the kind of household you grew up in, I get the sense that you come from a space where there is a lot that was going on.
Well, there was a lot that was going on, pretty much like Omari on both sides of the divide, Because here's the thing. I grew up in families that were very tied religiously to the Roman Catholic faith and tradition.
Right.
Right? I had that experience. But at the same time, I would see literature in my house that was teaching me all these things about my Africanness. And my African tradition. So when I started getting into these things now again, as a child growing up, you have an order to follow. So church is part of that. And then the church in itself would create a community, right? But then, of course, there came a time, and over the years, being exposed to literature and then talking to, especially my father's mother, who she herself was from Grenada, right? And very, 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 you look at her and you see powerful African woman, and the things that she would speak about. So having all these experiences, but then still going through the whole Roman Catholic, thing, and then coming to a point in my life where there start to be this divergence.
Yes. When
of concepts.
At what point in your life did you hit that divergence of concepts?
Funny enough, probably around, let me say around 16, 17. And here when it happened, it happened at a time that most Roman Catholics will consider a most inopportune time. When I was supposed to be confirming, making confirmation, right? So that all of this started happening at this time now, and then I start to pose questions in and of myself to these people who are supposed to be instructing us on this whole process of confirmation, and never getting satisfactory answers, things that wasn't resonating with me. However, when I look to the edification I'm getting about my Africanness and my African existence and connection, that seems to be resonating with me more.
So let me
and
share.
then all of this happening against the backdrop of the musical experience too.
So the
musical experience was important.
Let me share a little of my, because as you all are talking about this. So my mother is Tobagonian. That's the West African side of me, right? Because my dad is a Trinidadian and he's of East Indian extract. And some of my early memories is of my mother preparing me for school. And when I say preparing me for school, the Sunday before school has to open and start, I will get a bath, right? And this bath is there to protect me, to ward off evil, to ward off any maljo, that sort of thing. And I remember the baths happening and she's saying, don't let your father know, right? And so we couldn't. I mean, I wouldn't say anything, not because I felt like I had to hide it, just, okay, don't let daddy know, alright, fine. And then one day I was talking to him and I was saying, well, no, that does have to go in the bath that mommy does make. And he said, what you mean the bath that mommy does make? I said, yes, when school about to start, she's do a bath for us. And then there's another thing she used to do. She used to make an amulet for us to pin under our clothes, right, to go out to when we're going out to school and stuff. And there were a whole bunch of other things that she used to do. Now, eventually, when I hit like an age old enough to ask more lucid questions, I would ask more questions about her lineage and ancestry and that sort of thing, only to find out that her uncles, so it would be my great uncles, they were some of the biggest practitioners of work coming out of the village of Leketo, right? And there's a lot of very simple things that happened as a matter of course in my upbringing that I didn't realize was retention until I started reading about it in books, right? So when I started reading Maureen Warner Lewis's accounts of Central Africa in the Caribbean now, listen, me a line to tell you, The first time I read those books and started to understand that my mother was just practicing things that would have been handed down generation after generation after generation, just naturally practicing those things. And me, as a result of growing up with her naturally practicing it as well, it brought tears to my eyes.
It is so true. And again, my granny was grandma. She was like, she would do the same things, you know. She would, and I remember when I got my first vehicle, she bring the car for me, right? And she bring it. She said, keep this on you and put this in your car, right? And I say, of course, I young, so I say, my grandma is all of this, and she said, listen, you don't study that. She said, this is God's simple science. Right? She used to call it God's simple science. She said, it's God's simple science.
Yeah.
You know? And I had a unending love for my grandmother, so I just used to take it at that point in time because she gave me. Without, you know. And it's only after I realized, wait, Granny know things, you know.
Yes.
Granny know things, and those things, like I tell people, those things, it will come back to us from somebody with some book, and they will tell us, you know, that you need certain things that you can focus on and bring about this thought process, and they will give you all the thing behind it.
All the highfalutin philosophy behind
when
it.
You know, well, right, this is what grandma used to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Ancient African tradition.
Yeah. So
you know,
go ahead.
And those things are very important, because I don't beat my son over the head with it, but I let him know, listen, this is what my grandmother used to tell me. This is why I telling you this. This is the line that you come from. You know, and people always say, well, how come your son name is, you know, how you give him that name? I say, well, when I tell my son what his name means, right? When I tell my son what his name means, he know he have a mantle to take up. I'm not going to tell you nothing. You know, this is what comes with that, you know, and he go work that out for himself. But it's important that we do them kind of things, that we pass down and imbue them with a kind of power that is ours
I am agreeing with you entirely, because I mean, like Mr. Shak, when I hit 17, I just decided Christianity have nothing for me. Like, it not speaking to me in any form or fashion. I don't have a problem with other people practicing Christianity, you know, but it don't move me at all. Like, there is nothing about it that moves me. The one thing that keeps me engaged would be the music coming out of any religion at all, right? It's the music that will catch me. And what I've realized is that there are things about the music that you guys would be using as a for example, the sound and the rhythm, that's very, very, very important for well-being. It's the things that will, I mean, it will keep, either get your spirit up or calm and soothe your spirit. You know, various rhythms, various melodies that are so important. And for me, I just wish that there was more knowledge being shared about how these things are relevant to us. Mr. Shak, I see you want to say something.
What you talk about the one thing within that Christian experience resonating with you is the music, right?
Yeah.
Here's the thing that most people wouldn't say or admit to. But even in those realms, a lot of those musical principles, they go say borrow, but it's really stolen
from Africa.
From the African experience. You know? And so that is one of the reasons why, especially with the topic we're talking about here now, that it's so important, because even in our musical experience right now, right? And this is why it is so concerning to me, the way that the understanding of the tradition of the Calypsonian seems to be so often relegated to certain time and spaces, you know.
The secular spaces, you mean, and a festival?
Well, not only that is part of it. Okay. But even if we look at okay, so our most popular musical expression if we're looking from a Trinbagonian perspective now with soca music, right? And we understand that soca music is a derivation from that calypso music.
Right.
However, I mean, being on it, the intent and the purpose of modern soca music, contemporary soca music right now, it is what it is now is not even what was its original intent. Even if we go back to the individual and the individuals who are cited and credited as the innovators of this form of music. But calypso was and still is that thing that continues to play that role you're talking about the preservation and the handing down of all these experiences. Because when I talk about, and I mentioned it just now when we were talking about this divergence of thought and this awakening to music, my musical experience was doing that for me, because a lot of the music I would be exposed to through my parents and even what I would seek out for myself in terms of calypso and things. Those were the things that really taught me about the correlation between my existence and my experience and that African connection, that traditional, that historical connection. So when you listen to a man like Brother Valentino, who to me is one of the most renowned exponents of capturing historical things in calypso, a man who possesses that kind of skill, right? He is so important and ought to be so important, because again, historically, a man with that kind of skill, a person with that kind of skill was very valued in African society.
Shak, I want to come in there with Brother Valentino.
Come in.
Because one of the things that people don't understand, like for me, music has been my life, right? And I always tell people there's a particular Valentino track, which is Stay Up Zimbabwe. Stay Up Zimbabwe, beyond what it actually is about, there's an energy in that for me. So like when I was young and had my first job interview, the song I would play before I leave home is Stay Up Zimbabwe. Any challenge that I have, and I need to feel fortified and ready to go out and battle, the tune that I would drop is Stay Up Zimbabwe, because there's an energy in the music that gives you and builds you up to the point where you feel you could take on the world, right? And go forward with a kind of energy and what I try to get people to understand. Remember, music, particularly calypso and what we discussing now and that Griot thing, that the music and the lyrics coming together. So several purposes, and so there is I often tell people, when I simplify it, you have to know what music does to you. You know, I grew up with adoption around me, right? So when my grandmother, she Thanksgiving and thing, in the middle, one of my most painful injuries is a man with a big heel so on his shoe landing on my foot while he's singing adoption, right? But I in the mix there, that little fella, and I didn't understand the power in that until I started to record. And there's a song we did called Celebration that had some adoption in it, and we went into the vocal booth to record that. And the moment we started with adoption, something happened. Yeah, something happened between both of we. And when we done wet from head to toe thing, and you realize that we now in a zone, we in a space that come to interfere with you in a good way. So when we put out that song, we know what it was going to do. We know exactly what because we put that in there. You know, we put that love, the beauty, the energy, everything, so it shine through. And there's a kind of like almost it skip everything and take you straight back to the source. And so those kind of things critical. I tell people in this space, right, we are emancipating, right? The late great Tony Hall would always say that you're in a process of emancipation. And so in that mix, I had to create something I could deal with. So I tell people, my creation story is not Garden of Eden, it's not Adam and Eve. Me come to deal with that. My creation story is Juve. So my whole worldview is based on that. Now that does get people vexed. Juve, right?
But explain, elaborate a little bit about why you say your creation story is Juve.
So for me, right? Now every society have a creation story, right? Every society, you go to them, all Aboriginal, most Aboriginal societies. And so for me, I had to figure out a way to rebuild something that was removed. Yeah? Now, I just reached all the way back to Africa. But I in Trinidad and Tobago. Right? And there's a beauty in that too. So there's a strength in the foundation of the African. But there's a beauty in what we have created here in this space. Right? In this space, we create a thing. And when you bring that together and you look at the beauty of the Juve is all things that all religions look towards, you know. That triumph of the morning sun. Right? Triumph of the morning sun, that rising and renewal. It is also a kind of spring festival, right? Because the world is now starting over.
Well, rejuvenation, right? And rebirth and a whole number of things,
everything. Yeah? And so people didn't used to understand me. I used to tell people, when I go Juve, me I need to wine on one woman. I need to see none of my friends. I need none of them things because if that happened, nice, you know. Yeah. But I need it.
That's not what you need to have Juve.
Yeah. My process Juve is in that covering myself in the mud, the pain, the thing. I tell people, everybody, them say they don't know Juve, they say I play my Juve. You know?
I saw. I saw.
I'm mad because that for me is a ritual. So you're not stopping that. No, me going and break no law. I invite nobody with me. I ain't bring no thing. But me, I went and I got my paint. I went and I got my libations. I walk with my Bluetooth speaker. I went down in the savannah by where I live in. And I perform my Juve because for me, that is a critical and sacred space. Right? It is a critical and sacred space. And inside there, there are plenty of things that we could find that could fix what ails us in this tongue. But here what happened, right? We have a way that we just see Juve and Carnival and most of the cultural practices as a kind of frivolous undertaking.
And that is where I want to get to. That's where I want to get to. We finally start to talk the thing. How do we begin to shift away from, and when I say we, me talking about everybody here, this is not a tooth moon thing at all. It's not a tooth moon thing at all because it only has some people. I genuinely believe only some people could understand the need for that convoy, that safe space, that secret society, if you need to discuss it in that way, to come together to talk about Juve, not as a cultural, let me not say cultural, not as a money-making thing, not as a festival thing, not as this national event, because for me, Juve is a very personal and spiritual thing. You see, Hindu homes where you see they go and they're doing arti on mornings by the kutia, for me, that's what Juve like that for me, you know. It's a personal spiritual experience. Anyhow, Mr. Shak, I know you had something you wanted to say.
No, but I mean, you see, again, you had to understand because a lot of things rooted in that African ritualistic experience, of course, has been demonized, and we understand historically why that is the case. So that, and then you see that is reinforced in the now, because again, there is this focus on the euphoric part of the thing. You know what I mean? So to answer your question about how do we get back to entrenching and making people understand that these things are not simply for entertainment.
No, because they're very restorative. You hear what Omari said there? He had to go in the savannah and do it as he do, because it's restorative.
And that is the part of the thing for me, because there has been this discussion about making calypso, and not just calypso, but even things surrounding carnival experience part of the education system. And I all for that, But my thing is the what, right? So on the surface, for the most part, I've seen that they just want to approach it from the perspective of, okay, understanding the tenets of
well, it'll be academic. It'll be an academic approach, a very academic approach.
A very academic approach. But inside of there, we had to find the space, and I'm talking about from formative to not just tertiary or wherever, but from formative levels, to try and tie in the understanding of that tradition, that ritual, within the expression of the art forms as well too.
You see, I think part of the issue is we tend to think of the rituals that are associated with carnival as being secular rituals, I don't think we have yet started talking about these rituals as sacred things at all.
As sacred things, exactly. So that is why it has to be, while we understand that carnival is the space and the backdrop for a lot of it, it also has to be removed from that in terms of analyzing it,
Yeah.
It has to be removed from that in terms of analyzing it, because you see, the always approaching it and imparting it against the backdrop of carnival will create that scenario that you're talking about there. So we had to find a way to remove it from that and not just steep it in the carnival perspective, but understanding intrinsically in the rituals themselves, in the things themselves, that there is sacredness, there is history, there is lineage, so, and these kind of things.
Omari, what you think about starting a yard for them purposes? And I ain't talking about you doing it, but just generally yards being brought back.
That is a recreating, because we used to do it so, right? From the mass yard to the pan yard to everything, and people who much smarter than we tell we that is the right way, Lloyd Best and them tell we that, right? So but we lego it in a kind of way, because again, people will come with all the ideas of what carnival and what the rituals are, what calypso is, what is this, what, right? And so a yard right now is crucial. We need them spaces. For me, I have a very good friend who got married maybe a couple of years ago. So I went out to New York to meet with him, and I ended up in this weird line with was about 4 of us black men sit down talking, all Trini based, and all of us with children, and we're saying, we don't have a coming of age ritual to bring our children into adulthood, manhood, womanhood. We don't have this thing where we could spend some time to talk to them about all kind of things, from everything from the practical things of finance to the bodies, to the everything, where we could and create a ritual and a celebration around it, so that they could know, hey, I am now becoming a young man, I'm now becoming a young woman, I am being accepted into a new level. Those kind of things, and them is the thing we need, and them is the things that is happening in the yard, right? The yard is the space for that, where we could now acclaim these young people to levels, right? To levels. You now think you're entering as a teenager, then from a teenager you're now becoming and with that comes a kind of honest discussion, right? I just always tell people, and let me give a quick example.
Sure.
The Juve band I playing with, it have a couple of women who just come out topless, right? And nobody interferes with them or comes in their space. And if anybody think about it, there is a tribe that's ready and waiting to protect them, right? In that Juve. So therefore, it means then that inside of that Juve, it have something that we could extrapolate into the wider society if we look at it carefully enough. If we understand that why in that moment, one, that the women feel safe enough to do that, but also two, why the men understand they don't have access,
Understand the care,
right?
exactly.
And also we must protect, right? Them treating that happen without discussion.
Without discussion,
Right?
yeah.
The other example I like to give is a couple years ago when they was talking about permission to whine.
Yeah, this,
I-
yes,
I- I
yes,
I was just
yes,
going to talk
yes.
about that. I was just
We
going to talk
figure
about
that
that.
out. We figure it out and we throw it away because somebody tell me we have to ask permission when we already in the very dance.
That was already there. That
You
was
understand when
there.
you spread your hand so and you go by a woman and she watch you so. You done for
The spreading of the hand is asking for permission, and her twisting her face is saying, no, you don't have permission.
exactly.
Non-verbal.
And so we had to work out that on our in our own way, and we wanted to throw that out and get man to write slip and all kind of thing. You know, so for me, inside of our carnival, inside of our rituals, there are solutions to the wider everyday living. But because we regard it with such scant courtesy, we don't see it. Right?
But
we don't see
Omar-
when people talk when people talk about a carnival mentality. I just tell them there's the greatest thing ever. I say, you know how much hard work it does take to make the end product we're seeing, which is people whining on one another, happen. You know how much hard work and planning
You're right.
and so therefore carnival mentality is one of hard work because all we just see at the end of it is we on the road getting on bad. But at the end, that the last thing.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, me getting up every morning and getting on like a jam, it is hard work. People don't understand how much energy and effort that is take. Mr. Shak.
But I mean, I was going to jump off of what Omari saying there
Yeah.
inside of the carnival, because even look at the Panyard experience. The Panyard experience, especially for young people, and the kind of that teaching dedication, discipline. Because simple as it is, you could hear dinner talking going on in a Panyard, and the minute the band captain or the arranger tap that side of that pan, all talking, not just from the players, but even the people who spectate and done, because you know that is the signal that we about to get down to business.
And all players will fall in line. Players might have been wherever it is, buying something,
Wherever.
talking line, and
Wherever.
wherever. The
Right?
minute
So
they hear that,
So now just imagine you take that and you bring that into schools, you bring that into to neighbor, you bring that discipline that is there because we seeing it. It's the same young people, you know.
yeah.
We seeing it.
And as a matter of fact, I personally know young people who were regarded as problematic. And if you see them in that Panyard setting, you would think it's different individuals, because just that environment and that understanding of what that bring dictate to them that there is a different kind and level of behavior and order expected of them in that space. You know, so it is very important too in terms of educating them about appropriateness of behavior and context and time and place and all these kind of things.
Do you think commercialization of our culture has led to problematic areas for us in terms of, I guess, not just retention, but practicing things in a particular way? Omari, I'll start with you.
Right. So for me, I don't have a problem with there being a commercial side to it. But I have a theory about this. We have to, that can't be the goal, right? It could be a happy result. So for me, when you tell me, well, you know, we have to make things nice and we have to do this so that people could come and see, I'm not interested in people coming and seeing. I'm interested in doing the thing. And if they want to come and see, right, you could start it from there. So this is the kind of facilities we have for them when they come to see. This is what it will cost. This is what they think. This is how they could experience it. But my starting point is not how I could get the most people to come so I could put on my coconut shirt and my straw hat and entertain them. That is not so, and that is where the problem does be when you start off with the commercial impetus as the first thing. It could be a result because you understand, listen, we doing everything here, and as a side effect of we doing everything here, people find it beautiful and they want to see it. So let me pop some stand across there for them to see it, or some that cool. I have no problem with that, but it cannot be. We had it in reverse. We studying how we could market the product, and they think no, because I tell people, and I said this before, if it is that we taking ritual and we seeing it as a money making thing, then let me and Bermudas come up with a wafer for communion, and I will go and get some holy communion wine from Angostura, and let me put it on the market and sell it because
and we could brand it communion. That's what we're selling. We brand it in communion.
This is just about money, but because we know that it's a sacred thing and it's not about money, we're not going to do that. And so it's the same thing, right? It's the same thing. Now that don't negate a church from having collection or making money or doing anything. It don't negate that, but there are certain spaces and the thing that not for sale, right? And that we have to understand that. We have to understand that I doing my thing here, and you could come and see. I'm not doing my thing to bring you to come and see. So there will be no coconut shirt, there are no straw hat. We're not here to entertain.
No coconut bra. We're not doing it for an external gaze. We're doing it for ourselves.
Yeah.
For ourselves. I'm entirely in agreement with you there. And for me, I feel that's why it becomes so important to rejuvenate the tradition of the yards, because for me, when you're doing things in a yard, you're doing it for yourself. You're not necessarily doing it for an external gaze. Mr. Shak, I wanted to hear your thoughts on the question I asked Omari, which was to do with commercialization.
Pretty much hit the nail on the head. For me, is always problematic. This feeling that where our culture is concerned, everything is fair game as far as commercialization. Like everything should be for sale, right? Or that the perspective must be how we could sell. That must be the jump off point. I always have a problem with that. And it is interesting the analogy that Omari bring, because I was just about to say that is the problem, because again, and it get back to what we was discussing earlier, these things are not regarded as sacred spaces. They're not regarded as sacred practices. There's no, for a lot of people, they don't understand that there is part of it that should be off limits to that kind of consideration. So that for me, and as you say, commercialization is not to demonize that, but keep that in its proper context, because a lot of that commercialization for me, getting specifically to our experience, is what has been undoing a lot of the essence, the real essence of a lot of these traditions, carnival or otherwise, right? These African traditions that we have, it has been that undoing. And to me, in a real reverse and strange kind of way, that is the undoing of the very thing that could possibly bring the result that even the people who commercially minded thinking about and looking for, because there is an authenticity that ought to be preserved in the thing. If what you're looking for is impact, is resonance, because it is intrinsic in the thing, it is intrinsic in the thing. But when you start to think from a commercial perspective and decide, well, you have to extract that because they ain't gonna understand that, and that go offend, and that for me is where it becomes problematic.
Agreed. Fellas, we've been talking for an hour, so this is where
time went fast, man.
That time went real fast.
Time does fly.
So I will give both of you the opportunity to make, whatever closing comments or remarks you want to make. And also, thank you very much for, allowing me to pick your brain here this afternoon. I know the audience has been enjoying it a lot. So, Mr. Shak, let me start with you.
What I want to say is that, again, a lot of these traditions that steep in the African experience, because of our experience here and people who have been separated from that understanding, a lot of times it is difficult for them to understand. But that lack of understanding creates also a lack of tolerance, which is a very ironic thing to me. Seeing that tolerance is supposed to be one of our watchwords. Okay. So that what I want to tell the people who may feel unnerved by a lot of this, and even if you're not unnerved, you may not understand
Mr. Shak ain't unnerved. Now they're begging for a part two. It have people saying, keep talking, all kind of things.
for the people who may not understand why there is that visceral response every time somebody seeks to want to exploit, you know, in a commercial way, parts of that experience, you know, at least the tolerance first to understand, because a lot of time people don't turn the mirror inward, you know. And again, I had to go back to that analogy that Omari used, because if you was to propose that to diehard Roman Catholics, they come now, man, the burning at the stake.
Yeah. No,
You understand?
you're absolutely right. I mean, there are ways in which, while other religions have had aspects of their religion and ritual be used for commercial purposes here, they're more conscious of protecting certain things. So there are certain things that you cannot touch at all. I think apart from the Orisha tradition and the Baptist tradition in Trinidad and Tobago, Catholicism might be the other religion that gets touched in that way. But all of the other religions here gets protected, right? I mean, if you make a mistake and try to use certain songs, bhajans and that kind of thing, so you could get into all kind of problems. You have iconography, you can't touch, you can't use, you'll get into all kinds of problems, because people are cognizant and aware of what these rituals mean to them. What I think is we are still struggling with figuring out what our rituals mean to us.
Yeah.
And attaching and placing the right kind of importance to them. Omari is in a position where he can talk about precisely what Juve means to him, right? But not everybody, I think, is in a position to articulate, like actually say it even in their own head, why Juve is so important to them, why they have that connection to Juve, and why, or whatever aspect of culture here, why it means what it means to them, so that if they don't have it, if they didn't experience it, if they don't have the opportunity to have that experience, they are at a loss. They feel empty. And we have to get to the point where people can articulate these things, but we had to be able to talk about it in a particular way, using a particular kind. We had to develop the language for it. We have to develop the language for it.
And that is why you talking about yards or something akin to that is important, because the reality of the situation is these spaces are not going to just be
willingly
provided.
It's not going to be willingly provided. It's not going to be willingly.
I don't think.
It's too powerful.
It's
too powerful.
I do not think it is any accident that
they're not there.
Not only that, but I'm going to take it even broader. I do not think it is any accident that every genre and class of music that is predominantly practiced by black people and predominantly consumed by black people seems to be suffering this crisis of frivolity and euphoria being at the, you know what I mean? There was a time I was a hip hop head, you know. I was a rap, but you tell me what was the last quote unquote conscious hip hop song that you hear in mainstream? Popular. The last one I could remember is Nas, I Know I Can.
Okay, I mean there may have been something since Nas.
Yeah.
There may have been something. Oh, there's this guy, Jadena. You all know Jadena?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Of course we know Jadena.
Right.
But can you say that any of Jadena, so because I mean Nas, that okay, using Nas as an example, or even if I Rule the World, or these songs were endemic in people's understanding, even to people who were not seeking it out, you know.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And so that I'm saying I don't think it's any accident, so that finding the spaces and the opportunities to make that reconnection, that is not just something that happened by the way. You know, that disconnect didn't happen by the way, so that the reconnection is not something that just going to be, they're going to rock back and say, oh yeah, well, yeah.
No, I don't think that kind of reconnection can be allowed, really.
That is why the creation of the spaces very important. The creation of the spaces. But we can't just wait and think it will happen.
No, but I think that the creation of those spaces is in and of itself an act of rebellion. You have to want to push in a particular way to create those spaces.
I mean, nothing historically cathartic has ever happened without rebellion of some sort.
Yeah. Omari.
So for me, I because of Brother Resistance passing this week, I was having some deep thoughts about, you know, what me personally could do to honor what he has given me, to honor what he has given us. And my thoughts keep going back to one of the things that he always spoke about, which is rocking the colonial order, right? And we are part of a larger colonial project that some people think was done with, right? And don't understand that it is still being perpetuated. And so for us, we have to make dismantling that colonial project a very conscious and methodical thing, right? And so I tell people, because we this close upon history, sometimes we think nothing happening, because we're so close, you know.
Well, yeah, you could miss the forest for the trees sometimes, because if you're close to the tree, you wouldn't see the forest.
Yeah, but I am noting a bubbling of a kind of energy, right? That is disturbing to some people, but I find just glorious, right? And there's an energy that is bubbling, and we have to make sure that we take note of it. And one of the things somebody said to me with the passing of Lutalo is, they say, Omari, you see a gray beard now. You not only have to you're not only looking like an elder now, but you know kind of have to pass into a space where you're an elder. And I say that to say that those of us who know, not just in age, those of us who know and understand, have to ensure that those who come in behind us have the kind of facility and the kind of access to us, right? That we had to somebody who mentored us. That is important, that access to us, and that passing of the thing, and recognition of potential and importance in young people, and
future building, future planning, making sure that all of the things that this group of Jali men and women have don't die with us when we go. So and I think that is critical. You know, it's critical. This conversation was beautiful, by the way. Yeah, it was, and I agree with the audience. We need a part 2. If you see how much people saying they need a part 2, why it wrapping up now? Wrapping up now because Vonnet has shit thing happening in a little bit, and I want the audience to go and check out.
We have to give Vonnet space.
Yeah, you have to give Vonnet space. Exactly. That's part of how the thing does work. Is how to give everybody their space and thing. So, gentlemen, thank you very much, and we will have a part 2. I will rope all you back in very soon for us to continue the conversation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time and for your ideas this afternoon. Take care. Have a good weekend.
Right.
Take care.
Yeah, you too.
Right. So that was Omari Ashby, formerly of Kindred, and Mr. Shak, barman himself. And we were having a conversation about the value and the relevance of our griot tradition. So I hope you all came away with something useful. On Sunday, I am going to be interviewing Namdi Hodge about Creole, Patois. So when you all come here Sunday evening, we're going to learn to talk a little bit of Patois when you come Sunday evening. So we're continuing in this month of July to be focused a lot on African tradition, emancipation issues, all of the lies and myths and stereotypes that continue to be thrown at persons of African descent. So join me on Sunday and we go continue to talk the things, right? Thanks for being here with me this evening, though.
Sure! No, this is Brother Resistance, and I come with the power of the word in the rhythm of the word, riding the millennium with them all rap so children gather around. Hey.